Well, hello everybody, and we're excited to be jumping into chapter 3 of our emotionally healthy spirituality study. But before we look ahead, we want to take a second to look back at what we talked about this past week in chapter 2. Chapter 2 was Know Yourself That You May Know God. And this chapter was all about knowing how God has uniquely created you, how He has given you thoughts and emotions and opinions, and He has knit you together in a very unrepeatable, unique way, and how He longs to use that to accomplish His plans and His purposes, not just for your life, but for the benefit of the world and for His glory. And at the end of our class time this past Sunday, I had encouraged you to take some time this week in some time in silence and stillness. And this have found is so key. It's so pivotal to knowing ourselves, to knowing what's going on in our hearts internally, to examining our own emotions. And so I wanted to recap some of those guidelines that I had given to you of how to sit in silence and stillness. And just a reminder, this is a short 2 minutes. It doesn't have to take long. But really just calming yourself, sitting down, taking a few deep breaths, letting some of the anxieties that maybe are weighing on you or are floating through your mind just kind of fade away. Choosing a really simple sentence that you just offer to the Lord in prayer. 1 to 4 words max. I usually say, here I am, Lord, or you are here, Lord, or something like that. Closing your eyes, I found it's really helpful to open my hands to just physically show that I am in surrender. And then when the distractions come, just letting them come and then let them go. Don't give yourself a hard time because, again, God has created us and He knows all of the things that are on our hearts and minds. And so He is not holding us to a standard of perfection when it comes to this, that there is grace. So I have my little notepad that I jot down my to-do list as it comes to mind, and then I leave it there and I go back, maybe repeating my short phrase and just being, again, silent and still before the Lord. So I encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to give that a try this week, to go ahead and do it. But we're ready and looking forward to chapter 3. So
Yeah. Chapter 3 begins with going back in our history to go forward. And it's so important we do that because otherwise we find we have these behaviors that we really don't like about ourselves, and we wonder, why am I repeating that? Why do I keep doing that? And I can't seem to break free. And but when we go back, we gain insight, and that's just how God works. I know for myself, my grandpa lived in Landis Homes in Lancaster area, and very similar to Greencroft here in Goshen. And toward the end of his life, I'd visit him and say, Grandpa, you're sitting here, sitting so much in your room now that Grandma's passed, and don't you want to get out and do some things? And he would say, oh, look, Chet, all I know is work. That's all I know. And I don't, activities, they have a lot of good things here, but I just don't feel I can do them. And I'd think about that. And then later, I would be with my sons. Fast forward some years, I have 2 children. I'd be playing with my kids in my living room. We'd be having a riot, like jumping off the sofa. I'd be tussling them on the ground, and they'd be like, Daddy, and we just would be so into it. And I would say, all right, guys, and I would go back to my office. I had my church office in my home, and just check out. After like 10 minutes of just a great time, 10 minutes, and the boys are like, can't we continue? And I felt like I had to leave. And I'd go back to my office and say, why do I stop? Why do I do that all the time? And then it was gaining insight in my dad. My dad, the pastor, over-functioning, a great man, but he was always there for other families, and he did that with me as a boy. I realized we'd be shooting baskets. We just would get going and have, I got things to do. And his grandpa had not learned to be in the moment, to play and really enjoy. It was always anxiety about tomorrow. I need to be productive. I asked my grandpa then, I went back to my grandpa before he died, and I said, tell me about your dad, my great-grandpa. He was alcoholic, very emotionally withdrawn, and only had one time for one thing. Coming out of the Great Depression was work. You show your value by your work. And bing, kind of the light bulb went off. 4 generations. And when I began to get that, it was really what the healing was, and talking to my wife and talking to a brother and saying, would you pray for me? It was a guys group, a really healing guys group I had. I said, would you pray for me? I want to actually play with my sons for half an hour and show them that their daddy loves them. And I was able to pretty well break that behavior pattern, but I can still slip right back into it. But it sure is good to know what's going on, you know. Yeah.
Your story fits perfectly with what we're going to be talking about on Sunday. Especially biblically, we'll look at that. And it talks in Exodus 34, talks about the sins of the second and third generation. And often we think the sins, oh wow, that's like addictions and all these terrible behaviors. But often, or more often, it's attitudes or habits that we take on from our dads, our granddads. And so we'll look at scripture, then we'll look a little bit at why we hesitate, why we deny that we even have a past. And there's some issues there that we'll talk about as well. But I'm really excited about looking at what we'll be sharing on Sunday, and hope you'll be able to join us again as you have, and watching God work in our lives and our circumstances and building us up into who we are in Him. So wonderful time to be with you now, and we look forward to Sunday. God bless you.
God
See
bless
you Sunday.
See you then.